How long does it take to see results with our Blatchford coaching program?
That's a question we get frequently, obviously. And the answer is immediately. The answer is people get results immediately. And remember, we spend a full 6 hours at a summit where we go into what their dreams and goals are, what they want in their practice, their life, etc. And we put changes in place that day that will actually probably pay for the program, for one.
But we hear that often.
We hear that often from clients that they paid for it sometimes in the first hour because, we've done, I've been involved in over 4,000 practices and, I can find that left on the table in just about every practice we work with. But that day we put things in place on the overhead control. We put things in place on the schedule. For the time in the office, there's a lot of things that we get done that first day. So the answer is immediately.
Immediately.
And then, of course, we continue to coach them, hold their feet to the fire to make those changes permanent in their practice so those changes go on forever.
How does Blatchford Solutions help me attract the type of patients that I want in my practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the first thing that we do, Christina, is we actually define that patient.
Right.
We actually define the patient. We've got a pretty good system for figuring out what patient do we want in the practice. I think so many doctors ask that question. I say, how many new patients do you want? And they'll say, as many as I can get. At what point I say, well, fly over the town with an airplane, throw out flyers and say free dentistry, and you'll get a lot of patients. But we want to define, first off, who is the patient? And just to fill in on that, from the studies that we've done, we have found that those internal referrals are worth 2.5 to 3 times what the external referrals are worth. And when I say worth, I'm talking dollar value. And we've studied this, and for years, and we've got some real good internal referral systems for that.
So we will help you evaluate the marketing that you're doing and really supplement that with a strong internal referral system, so that you can start attracting the patients that you would like to see in your practice.
And when we study their marketing systems they're doing now, we look at the ROI on each one of those things. Who are they attracting? How much money are they spending, etc.? I mean, all that sort of thing has to be studied. And but yeah, the internal systems are really the best. Does Blatchford Coaching work with a startup practice?
Good question, Dad. That's something that we really enjoy working with startup practices because we actually can help doctors from the very beginning, even location selection and building design, and making sure that they really create their absolute dream practice. And so usually when you're doing a startup practice, you go into some debt, and we want to really help
some debt. Oh, that's a lot of debt.
Right. At least $500,000 worth of debt. So we want to make sure that they avoid costly mistakes by DIYing it, as they say, is doing it yourself. We don't, in dental school, we don't get the business classes to learn how to really do things well. So
and the other thing too is, rather than going in and undoing things that are done poorly, we can start out and just do everything right to start with.
Absolutely.
My question always is, why, Stina, would a doctor graduate from school, go $1 million in debt, and go out and try it on their own and do it yourself? I mean, that makes no sense at all. And I think, you talked about Google reviews. There's one Google review there of a couple that actually hired us 10 months before they opened their doors.
Right.
And I can tell you, from their experience alone, they eliminated a whole bunch of mistakes that so many dentists make, and it set them up for a lifetime of success. How can Blatchford Solutions help me with my relationship with the insurance companies, or changing that relationship with the insurance companies?
Good question. This is something that we encounter all the time, and therefore, of course, we have a system. We have a system for this. This is something that we have carefully honed because it is something that a lot of our doctors or a lot of prospects come to us and say, is this something that you can do? And we absolutely can do it. And so it's something that we have a complete system for. We have scripting for the team. We have scripting for the doctor. And we talk with the whole team on why we're doing this. What is the motivational factor to do this, that the doctor and team would like to become an unrestricted provider, meaning that they don't want to be constrained by the insurance company's what the insurance company dictates for the patient. And so our goal then is to be able to retain as many of those great patients that have that insurance as possible.
And we've literally helped dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of offices become fee-for-service from what they came to us with was mainly PPO driven. We've really helped a lot of doctors with that. And so we've got the system figured out for that.
I also would like to say, I'm going to ask and then answer my own question. My question would be then, do you only work with fee-for-service practices? Or is that something that you greatly emphasize? And my answer to that is no. If you have a PPO practice, we absolutely can work with you. If you want to keep it PPO, we can work with you. So I just want to make sure that that we're not excluding anyone.
Good point.
How much time does the typical Blatchford office take off per year?
It's an interesting subject, and it's something we've looked at for a long time. And I think one of the biggest things that we've done, and I've studied this for years, and I studied, here's an interesting graph. I studied diagnosis per day measured in dollars versus the number of days per week. And of course, this was back when doctors were working 5 days a week, and I found the curve dropped dramatically after 4 days. Right. So we said, okay, everybody take Fridays off. And then we started studying the number of weeks since a vacation. Mm-hmm. And what I found is that somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks, that diagnosis per day started to drop.
So it's diagnosis fatigue syndrome is what
Diagnosis fatigue syndrome was a disease of the year that we came up with. And, Vince Lombardi one time, the great football coach, said that fatigue makes cowards out of us all. And we know this happens because this is when hygienists talk to patients about treatment, and the doctor walks in the room and says, let's watch it. Right. Let's watch it. Now, that means you're in that fatigue syndrome. Well, then you and I both, and Brad Brayman also took Dan Sullivan's program and a strategic coach, and he redefined it also that we come back from a vacation and we actually go into a very productive phase. And then if we stay there long enough, we hit what he calls the mechanical phase, where we're going through the motions, but it's just not happening. And then if we stay long enough, we actually get in that burnout phase.
Right.
And so what we want to do is we shift the paradigm that time off is not a reward for hard work and duration. It's actually preparation to be effective. Mm-hmm. And so with that in mind, doctors start to watch this themselves, and they kind of titrate their own productive phase. Mm-hmm. How long can I be productive? And when do I start into that mechanical phase? And then they recognize burnout. Burnout, of course, is when you're saying, I really need a vacation. Right. If you're saying that, you're way overdue. Or I need to get out of here. I need a change of scenery. And so they start to realize that they have to take time off to be effective. And so the answer is somewhere between 6 on up to, say, 12 weeks a year. It's more, I think it's probably the better question is how much time do they work? How many days do they see patients versus how much time they take off? Mm-hmm. How will Blatchford Solutions help with my leadership skills?
Very good. I love that question because as dentists, we don't get any training in leadership when we're in school.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
There isn't enough time. We're learning dentistry. And so then we go into private practice and all of a sudden we're leaders. So we really feel like leadership is something that is trainable. We don't feel that it is something that you're either born with or you're not, and that's the way it is. And so we spend a lot of time and energy helping you become the best leader that you can be. And I really feel that this is something that is so important for offices to have a strong leadership, but not a dictator. That's not what we're looking at. What I would like to see is a leader that really develops the team members to think like business owners and be able to make decisions that are the right decisions in the office.
It's Tom Peters who once said that most businesses are under-led and over-managed. And I like to turn that around and create the dentist, the owner of the practice, as a strong leader. And that doesn't mean an ogre. That just means a clear vision, and their actions support that. And when you have good leadership, you don't have to manage much.
Exactly, but a great leader can really develop the team members
Yeah.
to be as great as they can be
Well,
in their positions, and that's really the goal of leadership.
and that's really what we work on, and we've talked about that in our video on the bonus system, how we want longevity with team members. We want team members who perform and think like owners. And good leadership creates that, and that's what we work towards. During the Dynamo, we spend a lot of time talking about behavior. And just like we teach our children, and I noticed right now we have Grace, your 8-year-old at our house, and you're teaching her that there's certain behavior that's appropriate and there's behavior that's not appropriate. Well, it's the same for adults. There's behavior that works and there's behavior that doesn't work. And there's behavior for leaders and there's behavior that's not being good leaders. And we get to choose. And so we shift the thinking a little bit when some doctor will say, well, Bill or Christina, I'm just not a good leader. And my response to that is that no, up until this point, you have not chosen to act like a leader or to behave like a leader. Change the behavior. Find some leaders that you admire and basically copy their behavior. It's really all about behavior. And that's a choice. And you see, I think that is one of the things that we emphasize in our program a lot with doctors and team members, that it's about behavior and you can choose.
Yes.
The question is, it's more of a statement from doctors, but my team does not like selling dentistry. What does Blatchford Solutions do to help with that?
Well, I'll tell you what, no one likes selling dentistry. Oh. And in fact, we don't like selling dentistry traditionally, because what that implies is that we're pushing dentistry onto patients. And so what we really focus on is having our team ask questions to the patient to find out, to really discover what the patient's why is, what's important to this patient. And once we find out what's motivating the patient, we go even further to find out, what is the emotional motivation for that. So let's say we have a patient who says, I want to keep my teeth for my lifetime. Great.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Why is that?
Why is that important to you? And so we absolutely work with your team on making sure that they're comfortable asking the questions and discovering what the patients really would like based on that.
So it's really a paradigm shift then from the traditional sales that they don't like,
right,
of pushing, to more partnership with that patient, finding out what they want. So it's a paradigm shift, which makes it easy. And then, of course, the bonus system also really helps with the team's motivation to do this as well. But we work with the team and train them the questions to ask and that sort of thing as well.
Dad, we often get the question about sales, and that when we say sales, that's kind of like the word of sales in dentistry. And we really think of this as a left brain, right brain phenomenon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, this is something we studied early on when I started my own practice, hiring a psychiatrist, and to how people make decisions. And we studied this a lot, and I've studied it now for 50 years. And people make decisions on emotionally.
Yes.
Instantly and permanently with that right brain. That's how we all make decisions. Doesn't matter what the decision is. What to wear today, what to have for breakfast, everything. Right brain decision. For example, that extra strip of bacon this morning was definitely a right brain decision. And then the left brain is the side that we got the data with to justify our decision. And the justification was, well, we just got back from an hour's walk so I can have the second strip of bacon. That's the way we make all decisions. So we bring that to the dental office, and how to talk to patients and how to listen to patients and get their right brain engaged, and then the justification is the left brain. Whereas most dentists and most of us spend most of our time speaking about details, which is totally a left brain conversation.
Do you mean educating the patient into submission?
Oh, educating them into submission. And the thing about the left brain is we don't make any decisions on the left brain. They're all made with the right brain, and the left brain then gathers the data to support the original decision. So it's an incredibly important conversation with dentists and their staffs.
Absolutely.
To get the staffs to talk to patients and listen to the patients and get that emotional side involved.
It's a team project.
So how does that work with dentistry? Well, if you're having a good right brain conversation with your patient about that new 10-unit veneer case because they're having their daughter's getting married in a couple of months, you might want to learn how to address their right brain instead of their left brain. And we can help you do that. So yes, the right brain, left brain conversation definitely matters, and understanding which side of the brain you're talking to at any given point in the conversation is really valuable. And we'll help you learn to address both of those very thoroughly.
So Christina, how do the Blatchford coaches work with the team?
I love that question. So we have coaches who are dentists who have been through our program, myself and Dr. Brad Brayman, who are coaching the doctors. And then we have team members, the youngest who has been with us for 20 years. So we have 3 consultants that go into your office that have had years of experience doing this. And they have monthly interactions at least with team members and really hold their feet to the fire, because what we would like to do here is to create sustainability with our coaching, so that if we do have a team member change, that we don't have the system leave with that team member.
You know, I would like to add that it's not just dentists coaching dentists, it's the two of you. You practiced and you put all these principles of work in your practice. And Dr. Brad Brayman did the same thing. As a matter of fact, Brad has been in the program like you. I mean, you started out when you were like 6 years old, and Brad started out when he was 7. His father was a client, his uncle was a client, and they've put these things to get successfully in a practice, not just being a dentist coaching these dentists. You've done the Blatchford principles your whole life, actually.
Dad, how often do Blatchford Solutions consultants come to the offices?
Well, we've actually worked this out over the years, of course, and they come once. They actually come once to the office, and we've designed a real good 2-day program where they spend the first day mainly observing things. Now, remember, this is after the team has been to the Dynamo, the 2-day seminar. So they're starting to put these things in place, and what we help them do then is customize those systems to match their office. And then the coaches are available, the consultants are available as well to the team members pretty much as needed to continue putting these things in place. And I think something you mentioned is the sustainability, and that is creating the systems that will go on when there's a change in team members, because that's a fact of life. Team members will change. Now, we are amazing how long our team members stick around. And of course, part of that is the bonus system that works, and the amount of free time that they have and all that sort of thing. But it depends on performance. And so they're available on pretty much as needed to get those things in place.
And another thing that really has happened over the last few months is that our consultants Zoom into meetings with doctors and teams. And so they actually, to say that we only come into the office once, that's only physical, but virtually they do that more as needed.
Yes, technology has really improved this. It's really working well. So Christina, what is it that makes Blatchford Solutions different than other dental consulting and coaching programs?
Well, I'm glad you asked. What makes us different is that we actually are dentists. We are dentists coaching dentists, and that is definitely different than other coaching programs.
And so many of these concepts that we teach grew out of my practice when I was practicing. However, over the last 40 years, we've actually worked in 3,500 to 4,000 practices and have learned a lot of other things and other ways to practice as well. But the main thing is we're dentists.
Not just dentists, but we have used these concepts as dentists in our own practices.
That's correct.
To really make our practices go from good to great.
And I think another important part is our consultants have all been with us 20 years or more, and they all came out of practices that we worked with. And I will mention here, we never hire people out of offices we work with. All of these people came from offices. Doctors had retired and then sold their practices, and they came to work for us. But that's a tremendous difference between, so when you get one of our consultants in your practice, they've been in a lot of practices. They weren't hired out of one practice and given 3 weeks training and sent out to your practice. These are seasoned veterans. And that's a huge difference.
We've been in the trenches. We've gotten results from the program, and so we're ready to share with you all the results that we've received. Dad, here is a question that we get a lot, and that is, what can a Blatchford Solutions client expect for a return on investment?
That's a great question, and I think a client should ask that question. They really should ask that question. Anytime you get ready to hire a coach or consultant or whatever it is, you should ask, what's the ROI going to be? I mean, and that's really what we founded this whole coaching program on, was net income. And so many coaching programs focus on the gross. In other words, how much can I gross, so you can brag about that at your local dental science meeting. Or the other one I get is more new patients. I mean, how many new patients do we get? And I've always focused on net income, because and we've had many clients over the years, and I think of one in particular who did not have to raise her gross at all. As a matter of fact, she was doing enough dentistry, but we focused on the net income, and we were able to basically double her net income in the first 12 months. Now, we've extended the program to 18 months, and we're seeing this consistently, that we're getting double and triple net income. So the ROI is $2 to $3 for every dollar they invest. And of course, that's in the first 18 months.
Right.
And then that goes on for the rest of their career. So it's really an infinite amount that they can expect from this program. It's not uncommon in our program for doctors to literally double their net income in that 18 months. We just had a doctor recently who had a practice doing $2 million gross with about somewhere making around $750,000, $800,000. But we added $1 million to that gross, and about 70% of that extra million went right to the bottom line. I mean, we virtually doubled that net income for him. I mean, it's like a 10 to 1 return.
Right.
Now, we monitor that on a monthly basis to see what they're doing. And it's not just gross. I mean, gross is interesting, bragging rights at the dental meetings, I suppose, but it's net income that makes the difference. And when I started this program 40 years ago, I said, I'm not going to focus on gross. We're going to focus on net income. I think the other thing that we should focus on, I think the additional free time that the dentist and the team get is, while it's not measurable in dollars and the CPA doesn't see it, but when they double the amount of time that they have off to enjoy their family and enjoy their hobbies and just enjoy life, to me, that's probably more important than dollars.